Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori Brame. I am glad you're here. Today I am going to be talking about medical PTSD. So if you guys have watched my stories and seen the stuff that I've been through, it is probably no surprise to you that I was diagnosed with medical PTSD. Actually, when I got diagnosed, it was when I was suicidal during postpartum depression. I had had a really hard pregnancy and childbirth and postpartum period. I had to stop breastfeeding suddenly, and there was just a lot of stuff going on during that time that added to the postpartum depression. I also had very severe active lupus that was constantly flaring, and of course a side effect of that, it was depression. So just Bermuda triangled up, and I reached a point where I knew I needed to get professional help. So I had gone to a psychiatric clinic that we had in Indianapolis. During that time when I spoke to a psychiatrist and a therapist and a medical doctor, they all did a bunch of evaluations on me and everything, and they said that I had severe postpartum depression and PTSD. Of course, I thought PTSD, I've never been to war, what are you talking about? But there is such a thing called medical PTSD. So I wanted to talk to you guys about that today. So I'm just gonna read the definition real fast. I'm gonna pop it up there too. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition that is triggered by, that's the wrong one. Medical trauma is a form of psychological trauma resulting from medical diagnosis or intervention resulting in symptoms that can include post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, or sleep disturbance. So I had all of those, definitely all of those. I just wanted to talk about what it feels like, some difficulties that come with that diagnosis, and also ways that I have learned to cope with it. Also, if you feel like you may have PTSD derived from medical circumstances, there's usually two reactions to the diagnosis. One is I don't deserve it. I have never been to war. I have never experienced human trafficking or something like that, where it's like the person getting the diagnosis is like, but all these other people, they deserve the diagnosis, not me. It is seriously just trauma. If you have a reaction that is congruent with the symptoms of PTSD, you have PTSD. That's just how it works. They have an assessment that they do, and if you qualify on that, that's how it works. And so a lot of people, they don't like saying it because they're just like, well, I don't deserve to have it. Another common response that people have is shame. It's, why couldn't I have handled it better? Or why do I have a disorder from it instead of just being able to roll with the punches and experience, resiliency that they feel that they should have. So if you are struggling with those thoughts, and I have struggled with both of those thoughts, so if you are feeling some type of way about it, just know that it is a diagnosis to help you in the direction of recovery. And I do believe recovery is possible. I may not be 100% there. I don't know if I'll ever be 100% there, but I know I have recovered significantly since I got the first diagnosis. So basically what I experience from it is a lot of physical responses to external triggers. I also want to talk about internal triggers, because if you're the one who is sick, you probably have a lot of internal triggers as well. Some of the external triggers for me are smells. If I smell a certain type of hospital energy, I don't even know what you call it, but it's like, how some hospitals smell different than other hospitals? There's this very specific hospital smell that will make my palms sweaty and my heart rate pick up, and it is just like all those memories come back to me. Also, different places that I was or that I drove through or anything like that were also very triggering to me. This was hard in the years following my diagnosis and treatment, just because I still lived in that town. I still had to drive all those same roads. I had to go to that hospital just to get checkups. And even though I was healthy, I still had, it was almost like this doom cloud over that area, and it was really hard for me to get past. And any trip to the doctor, no matter how small, even if it was a checkup for my son, just really, it was very triggering for me. Sometimes, and I'm not as much with this as I used to be, but oftentimes I would just hear people talking about their experience with me when I was sick, and that was also very triggering for me. Part of my illness and PTSD diagnosis was going through psychosis when I was overprescribed steroids. If you want to watch that video, I think I have 3 videos on that right now where it's just the initial experience, how it felt, and then the recovery from it. So you can go check that out. Or maybe it's... So there were a lot of parts to that were very difficult, and there were a lot of external triggers when it came to that. For a long time, going back to internal triggers, I couldn't feel happy. That was a big trigger for me because the feeling of joy, like that bubble rising in your chest of excitement or joy or elation, anything like that, was a huge trigger because that was how the psychosis started. And so it was probably a few months to a year after I had had that experience that I was able to start feeling little bits of joy again without feeling like I was going to go right back to the psych ward. Other internal triggers are knee pain. I actually had a trigger for this summer. I was sitting in a weird position. It was like a high up booth at a restaurant, and I had a lunch meeting there for work, and I had been sitting there for about an hour and a half. And even if you're in remission from lupus and maybe just like, you know, pushing 32 years old or something, you get stiff if you are in that particular position. I get stiff if I'm in that particular position for too long. And the tendons in the back of my knees hurt like they did when I had very severe lupus. And I was shaking, I was crying. I didn't feel like I could go back to work. I had my doctor's number pulled up where I was gonna call her and leave a message like, oh my God, I'm flaring, like I don't know what to do. Luckily, I called my boyfriend and he kind of talked me off a ledge, and he was like, if it still hurts when you get home or if it still hurts tomorrow, then we can make that call. But you were probably just sitting in a weird position for a long time. So it turns out that he was right, and it went away pretty much as soon as I got back to work and walked around for maybe an hour, and it went away, and I didn't really have to worry about it anymore. But you know, if you don't have PTSD, if your body has a little ache and pain, you just kind of roll with the punches, and you know, you see if it persists, and it's more of a curiosity, like, oh, I wonder where this is from, instead of, oh my God, illness is inevitable. Also, my eyes, I had a real issue with my eyes. I still do sometimes, but where I get eye auras, and then also sometimes the tendons in my eyes will become swollen, and I'm like, they'll look in 2 different directions. It's really freaky, and it hurts like hell when that happens. And so whenever I even get like a feeling that, you know, my eyes hurt or anything like that, I internally start freaking out. And I am a very high functioning, anxious person, but that will make me not go to work. That will make me just stop everything, not drive, lay on the couch. Like it gets pretty bad. And so I have found little ways of coping with it. A lot of it is just to wait. Oftentimes these little symptoms will go away if I just wait a little bit. Another coping skill I have is talking to people about it. That honestly really helps talk me off a ledge. Another thing that has really helped me is telling people in my life that I have it. This works for a couple of reasons. One, you'd be surprised how many people also have a diagnosis of PTSD that they don't talk about. It gives you a real sense of camaraderie with them, where it's like, yes, we're both fighting through this together, and it is somewhat outside of our control, but also something that is a challenge that we're just working through. Another thing is so that they get it, so that they understand. If I am really triggered, I usually just want to lay on the couch. I just want to sleep for a long period of time. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to get up and make myself food or anything like that. I just want to stay completely still until it goes away in bed. So for me, it's important for the people closest to me to know about that. Also, sometimes I do have triggers that I'm working through that I have not completely conquered yet. And one of those for a long time was when people talked about their experience of me when I had psychosis. That is still a pretty mild trigger for me. It's not as major as it used to be, but that is one that I had to be very clear with people. You know, don't tell me. Don't tell me about that because it is something that is really hard for me. And how your friends, family, loved ones, acquaintances respond to you setting that boundary is very good information. If they're like, oh, quit being such a baby or something like that, they're probably not like, the type of person you want to go on through life with right there by your side. However, if they pause and they're like, I didn't know that, thank you for telling me, I will try to remember that in the future, that's a sweet spot. That's what you want. And I'm lucky enough to have quite a few people in my life who are aware of that, and they have that type of response where they want to be able to help me in any way they can, including not talking about certain subjects or letting me bring it up and not giving their side of it. But it is very important to know your own limits with it and be able to communicate those well and really advocate for yourself. It's not just with doctors, it's in your community as well. Another thing that I just want to say real fast, I just want to double down on the fact that you do not owe anyone anything. If people ask how you're doing with it, you do not have to tell them. People ask if you have it, you do not have to tell them. If you literally go to the doctor, receive the diagnosis, come back and they ask how it went, you do not have to tell them anything. Medical diagnoses are very personal. Even though it's in your brain, it still is a part of your body and almost more intimate and vulnerable than a doctor diagnosing anything else about your body. And so I just want to say that up front. If this is something that you need to keep to yourself for a couple years, forever, whatever it is, do not be hard on yourself to share it. Because again, you need to know your own boundaries. You need to know what will help you conquer it. And if that is silence, quiet support from maybe one other person or just your doctor or an anonymous support group online, whatever you need, please get that help, because you can set yourself back if you push yourself too far too fast. So I just want to put that bug in your ear. Just really check in with yourself before you start sharing it, because you don't owe anybody anything. And just because somebody feels like you owe them that, you don't. Just respect your own boundaries, share your boundaries if you can. And I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys, if you're finding this and you're just looking for some help, I hope this offers it, and I'm right there with you. See you guys later.